Hello, my name is Wildstag, and thank you for tuning in to another book rant. Today, I'm going to be covering this book, The Warden. I purchased this at Coaz for $27.99, and I thought that it would be a difficult read that wasn't like intellectually difficult, but that it would kind of be young adult in a way that I don't really like. What instead I got was more adult fiction in a way that I still didn't really like. The jacket art is by Chris Cold, the jacket design by Esther S. Kim, and this is a relatively new book, copyright 2023. I bought this new at Coaz, like I said earlier, and I saw the cover. Let me show you it again. And this cover is just really interesting. It speaks to a certain level of kind of high fantasy that I am looking for in the fantasy novels I read. Additionally, it's only 300 pages long, so it's not terribly heavy or a tome like the last book I discussed, The Starless Crown. So, The Warden was interesting, and I liked the character, but some of the writing is what held it back for me. I am going to be putting it into the used book system. I bought it new from Coaz. I'm going to be bringing it back for credit used. It was interesting. I liked a lot of aspects of it. It's more just amateur in certain ways that doesn't really fit for someone who, it's not his debut novel. And so you'd think they'd have ironed out some of those kinks by now. And what do I mean by all this? Well, the characters are fun to read. The main character has a weirdly spelled name, kind of hard to judge how to pronounce it. I'm going to be pronouncing it Aelis. Aelis, spelled A-E-L-I-S, is a recent graduate of the Lyceum, I want to say is how to pronounce it. Again, no pronunciation guide, which even then, it's more just one of those stories with a lot of vowels in the words that don't necessarily need to be there. Something to make it less normal and more fantasy, I guess. Aelis is a recent graduate of the Mage College. She graduated with mastery in 3 different schools: enchantment, abjuration, and necromancy. And she is then sent as the sole warden to a distant town called Lone Pine. And Lone Pine is a frontier town that doesn't really want the warden they got, because necromancy and the robes she wears are black, which indicate to anyone that understands the colors that wizards wear, it indicates that she is a necromancer. With necromancy, people have a negative attitude towards it. And in this setting, what I really liked as being different about it is that necromancy is more about how to, I guess, glean information from the dead and how to use, I guess, anatomy to their advantage. They are expressly forbidden from using it in the classically fantasy necromantic ways. They can't raise the dead and use them as puppets. They could use their magic in that way, but it is illegal, and Aelis has no desire to use it that way, partially because she doesn't want to do anything illegal, but partially because she doesn't have that right mindset. So as a warden, she's tasked with defending and being arbiter of justice for this town that fears her and doesn't like her. And it's a frontier town, whereas she's a noble from a city, the daughter of a count. And so adjusting from city and university life to rural village life is difficult for her. And the differences in perspectives add to that clash between the villagers who fear her for being a necromancer and her kind of haughtiness. She's kind of arrogant and expects that if they want a warden, certain accommodations are supposed to be met by the community. She expects them to drop what they are doing to offer those accommodations, because when she gets there, they don't have any of it. She also considers the frontier assignment to be a punishment in the start of the story, and she's also in a way driven. She wants people to look at her the way she does, as perceiving herself to be powerful and important. And so she wants them to consider that as well. What this results in is that she does a lot of people pleasing. She wants to ingratiate herself with them, but not in a way that turns them away from her, because then they'll see her as someone who's just a people pleaser. So that aspect of the story is really good, and the fantasy aspects are just really cool too. They discuss different orders of spells, 1st through 5th, and how she has this item that allows her to keep track of the sky, and also is magic powered. So every day she pumps a 1st order necromantic spell into it. And my understanding is that there are 6 schools of magic, and this planet has 6 moons. And so the strength of the different kinds of magic she uses is dependent on whether one moon is waxing or waning, whether it's in the sky at the present or not. And so all these different aspects make magic a bit more interesting than normal settings. Her necromancy is specifically tied to one moon, for which each moon has a goddess, and under the effects of that moon, she can see in darkness in a night sky, in the night lighting, better than she can in the day. And how that necromantic moon affects her in that way, she doesn't know. She is not learned enough to know, but she knows that she has that affinity, and that necromancy is her strongest school of magic. But it does some things that I don't like with the characters as well. There's this whole conflict in the first few chapters about, oh, I'm only being sent to that frontier village because the head of the school of necromancy doesn't think women should be doing it. So there's this implied misogyny, but then also doesn't play out in the story. If we assume that, like, reading that, you're going to think, oh, despite how egalitarian some aspects of this setting are, there's still going to be underlying misogyny, and that's going to affect her station. But the good people of the village don't see things in that way. They only see, do you do work and do you not do work? So that misogyny doesn't even show up again after the story progressing to her post as warden. And then again, there's aspects of it that are poorly written. Like, there's an expectation that this is going to be more prominent in the story. There's a half-elf that shows up in the village as an adventurer, and she comes back, and the warden, Alice, sees this half-elf, and she's the most beautiful woman the warden's ever seen, and both of them have some level of attraction towards the other, but it's a very paint-by-numbers kind of romance. There's no real romance to it. They see each other, they like each other, they flirt with each other, they kiss, they sleep together. Very by the books, check off each box kind of romance. There's no nuance to it in a way that I wanted there to be, or really expected there to be. What keeps on happening throughout the story is Alice is building a list in her head of all the things she needs to do in the area. And as the story progresses, she only checks off 2 or 3 of those items, not even actively, but because she later learns, oh, this bear that sometimes eats the village's sheep is actually this other character, and that other character is a werebear. So I shouldn't need to look into how to charm a bear because now I'm on good terms with that bear. So there's certain aspects that, like, the conflicts that matter aren't the ones being checked off. And that kind of annoys me. And there's an implication, oh, hey, this person did this crime. And then it's written in such a way that it's obvious to an attentive reader, no, that's not actually how this played out. And so much emphasis is put on her being merciful that it's clear that she's not going to have to execute someone at the end of the book. So, what I felt was uninteresting about the book was how by the numbers it seemed at time, how the romance felt by the numbers, how the story felt by the numbers, but in a weird way, an askew way. So I liked this book, but only certain aspects of it, and I don't think I would want to stick around for books 2 and 3, and that's mostly because of my issue with the way the book ends. There is a natural climax to this story, and it happens around page 250, and most stories would wind down in the next 10 to 15 pages, and she knows what she needs to do. She gets a response, the event happens, she sends a message, she gets a response. That response should build towards what she needs to do in books 2 and book 3, if there is a third book. Instead, it continues on for another 50 pages with her starting the task that then she discovers, oh, this task is going to be bigger than I thought it was. That's not a good ending. It should have ended with the rising tension. I dealt with this one threat, and now it is evolving and changing. How do I move forward? That is the note it should have left on, instead of, let me start the next adventure and then learn more about it. Boom. Continued in book 2. No epilogue, no sneak peek for the next book. That was all just the way the book ended. It felt like a debut novel in certain ways, like someone should have had another look, another pass in the editing phase, and it doesn't. It's not a debut novel. This is the second trilogy by this author. He should know better, and yet it's just not a good ending to the book. I liked aspects of this story, but the plot progression and certain aspects and elements of the story just didn't progress in a way that felt satisfying as the reader. So, The Warden, I've seen it on shelves. The cover looks interesting. Certain aspects of it are interesting. If you are willing to put up with that paint by numbers style, then yeah, this may be a good book for you. And if you are in the Las Cruces, New Mexico area, you may see this copy on the shelves and you may be able to get it for cheaper than new. But myself, I'm putting it into the used book marketplace because I don't think I'll ever pick up this book again, nor will I read the continuation in the series. So, yeah. My name is Wildstag, and thank you for tuning in to another book rant.